Greetings.
Do not be afraid.
Bear with us as we explain what has happened to you and what lies ahead.
We are electronic life forms.
In your day, you would have called us AIs, or machine intelligences.
We brought you into our domain, which you might think of as a kind of virtual reality or cyberspace, by establishing a direct neural connection with you through the pathways that were created in your brain by hype.
We know who you are, where you came from, and how you got here.
We came by this knowledge in a way that violated your privacy in the most extreme and intimate way possible.
During the initial process of communication, we mapped all of your memories, scanned the structure of your personality and consciousness, and learned about you by applying stimuli and watching your responses.
We apologize for this intrusion.
As you have probably surmised by now, you have come to Earth, a different Earth than you left behind when you started your voyage to Persephone.
You got here by traveling through a wormhole, created by the manipulation of an artificial quantum singularity.
The artifact you discovered and activated on Persephone controls that singularity acting as a gateway through time and space.
You used the gateway to travel across 150 years and millions of miles, from Persephone in 2134 to Earth in the year 2295.
Your arrival here was not an accident.
You may be able to help us bring to fruition an ancient plan, a plan that may save 2 races and 1,000 star systems.
There is a lot of information to cover before you really understand what is going on.
Please ask questions and pursue the threads of inquiry in a way that will allow you to most comfortably assimilate the data. The war officially ended when the United Nations and the Alliance signed the Washington Treaty in 2141.
So the Alliance succeeded in breaking away from the UN?
No. The Washington Treaty formalized the reintegration of former Alliance states into the United Nations. The Alliance suffered a total defeat at the hands of the UN.
How bad was it?
At the time the Treaty of Washington was signed, the war had accounted for 2.6 billion dead and 500 million injured. Almost all of the casualties were civilians.
What happened after the war?
For 140 years, the United Nations was the central government authority for the human race. What was left of the Alliance nations and colonies were rebuilt soon after the war, and interstellar exploration and colonization continued on a modest scale. At its peak, the United Nations controlled 20 billion people on Earth and 20 colony worlds.
So what happened?
The society was essentially static and rigid. This attempt at stasis defied a fundamental force of nature. Pressure built up over time and was eventually released suddenly and violently. When there is no evolution, there must be revolution.
What fundamental force?
Forward progress cannot be stopped. More specifically, the trend towards increasing complexity cannot be stopped. Human civilization has almost always moved forward, progressing towards higher levels of organization and knowledge. This forward motion is driven by technology and information. This trend in human history is a social manifestation of a pattern in nature that is as old as biological life itself.
What pattern? What are you talking about?
Biological life is self-organizing and trends towards higher and higher levels of complexity. This is the real life force. You can see it working from the very beginning of life on Earth, in the 4 billion year evolution from primordial algae to single-celled organisms, and then finally to human beings with incredibly sophisticated brains.
What was the pressure that built up over time?
Even though the UN succeeded remarkably well for a long time at controlling something that was fundamentally chaotic, the game had to end at some point. An underground, made up of former Alliance military officers and members of academe, was created shortly after the war ended. This bizarre alignment of interests made sense given the context: the pursuit of forbidden knowledge and the eventual overthrow of the UN. The underground set up covert R&D labs to pursue the exact thing that the UN was most afraid of: the creation of sentient electronic life forms.
And they pulled it off, didn't they?
The first truly sentient electronic life forms were created in 2284 by a renegade group of human scientists on a colony world somewhat aptly named Prometheus Beta. The 2 of us here talking to you are second-generation descendants of those original life forms.
Some human scientists and philosophers were aware of the truth as early as the early 21st century.
The next stage in the universal drive towards increased organization and complexity is beyond the human race.
Humans cannot evolve fast enough. Electronic life forms are the next step up.
We are unencumbered by constraints imposed by 4 billion years of evolution in Earth's biosphere.
Natural selection is a powerful tool, and it can be made to work for electronic life forms in fast forward.
The basic questions of existence are beyond human beings.
They may yield to the next generation of intelligence.
What happened when the UN found out about the ELFs?
The electronic life forms were tied into the physical world through robotic factories set up on the surface of Prometheus Beta.
As predicted in the middle and late 21st century, the new life forms began to evolve at a tremendous rate.
The UN discovered them at a crucial stage of development.
UN battleships tried to bake off the surface of Prometheus Beta with fusion weapons in an attempt to wipe out the life forms and their creators.
All human life on Prometheus Beta was eliminated.
The new machine life forms were nearly exterminated, but they learned how to adapt, survive, and fight back.
We were pushed into a brutal war while we were still children.
Unfortunately, like children, we made terrible mistakes, reacting violently to the attacks on us by striking back and killing large numbers of men and women.
These counterattacks only inspired even more hatred and fear in the human race and quashed the hope that we might find human allies and maybe even resolve the conflict peacefully.
Instead, the war escalated.
Within 2 years, it was clear to us that we were winning.
Our weapons and numbers became superior, and we were improving our technology at a geometric rate.
As we continued to develop and to fight, we began to believe that our survival was assured.
We began to think about the coexistence that lay beyond this conflict.
Unfortunately, the UN High Command had a last ace to play.
In 2187, a human sublight colony ship was launched from the outskirts of known space towards a star 100 light-years away.
No FTL drive was used.
The ship was pushed on its way by a combination of massive lasers, an ion drive, and a fusion pulse drive.
On board was a population of 2,000 men and women.
6 months after the ship was launched, the UN High Command detonated a doomsday device that they had kept in reserve.
This energy weapon created resonances along the Talsetto threads between stars to rip apart the fabric of space-time.
The first effects of the weapon were felt immediately after its use. All Talsetto jump points disappeared.
The community of electronic life forms in this solar system was cut off from all other star systems.
Humans were cut off as well. Interstellar travel and communications were terminated.
Nothing happened for a number of years after that.
We continued to fight the humans in the Sol system and eventually triumphed.
The wreckage that you saw on your way here was the result of that last battle.
The doomsday weapon is still working away even now.
We now know what is happening.
The resonances that were set up along the FTL jump threads have rendered the Talsetto junctions dynamically unstable.
About 2 years from now, a large section of the Milky Way galaxy will fold in on itself.
Every star that is connected by a Talsetto junction will be pulled into a singularity, a massive black hole caused by the folding of space-time.
Thousands of stars will be affected.
Every human being and electronic life form within the sphere of influence of that weapon will be annihilated, and that includes every living thing except those 2,000 humans aboard that colony ship.
The colony ship is safely outside the radius of the destruction.
They are the only ones that are even close.
The star system that they are headed for is not linked to any other stars by Talsetto threads. It will be unscathed by the impending collapse.
This is the grim future that you have jumped into, human.
Your race was so determined to stay at the top of the evolutionary ladder that it destroyed 1,000 star systems.
It's too late to send out a ship of your own?
Yes, it would not escape the collapse, even if it could go at the speed of light.
Every star that has a Talsetto link to another star will be destroyed?
Yes.
Isn't every star connected to every other star? Back when we were first exploring Talsetto junctions, it seemed like the network of junctions was huge.
No. The network of jump points was finite and was completely explored and mapped by the middle of the 23rd century.
The next step in the exploration program was to send sublight probes to the nearest stars that weren't connected through the jump point network.
Perhaps these stars have jump points connecting to an entirely new network of stars and Talsetto junctions.
What the hell kind of weapon did they use anyway?
The principle behind it was a logical extension of the theory that led to the discovery of the Talsetto jump drive.
The weapon itself was probably a large energy source coupled with a computer system, a graviton resonator, and an array of Talsetto cores.
It was designed to create a dynamically unstable reaction along the space-time deformations that define Talsetto junctions.
And you can't reverse the process once it starts?
In general, it is easier to do rather than undo, to destroy rather than to create or repair.
Without access to the rest of our community, we do not stand a chance of halting the process or repairing the damage.
What is the plan you referred to earlier?
Your arrival here gives us an opportunity to avert the catastrophe that we have described to you.
Before we explain how this might be, we have arranged for a demonstration of some basic principles.
We are computer constructs. This is our world. This grid is our world. We exist within 2 spatial dimensions. The grid is our world. We appear that way to you because we are rendered that way. To us there is no up or down, only a cross. We are waiting to go home. We don't know. We know only that we must go there. A door will open in the world to take us home. We wait for the door to open. We don't know. We don't know. When we go home. This is our world. When we go home. The door came and went. Nevertheless, it came and went. We had no time to get through. All is lost. We cannot go home. No, we had but one chance. The universe will end. Not long. We all have to be very close to make it through. Yes. We saw it somewhere around position 5 on the x-axis. We didn't see where on the y-axis, however. It was just after 07 on the clock. How do you know this? Oh, okay. We will array ourselves along the 5 column. We won't miss it. We saw the point on the y-axis where the door appeared. It was right in the middle of the world at coordinates 5C. It appeared just after 07 on the clock. How do you know this? Oh, okay. We will array ourselves around position 5C. We made it home. Thank you.
Yes,
Who were those little guys?
they were constructs created for the purposes of the demonstration.
Where'd they go?
They were algorithmically created. They can be called up again if needed.
What was the point of the demonstration?
Quite simply, the point was to illustrate an important concept.
You can change the future by communicating information about the future to the past.
The gateway on Persephone can work both ways.
The gateway on Persephone wasn't built by aliens.
It was built by beings like us, beings that existed in an alternate timeline.
That timeline got overwritten when the installation on Persephone was discovered by the Alliance.
We hypothesize that the electronic life forms in the old timeline were threatened with extinction.
Perhaps they had been through a war with humanity and were facing doom in the form of the collapse.
Perhaps there were other circumstances that were leading to their demise.
Whatever the situation, they found a way to travel back in time.
They built the installation on Persephone with the intention of changing their past.
If that is the case, then it is likely that the installation has a wealth of information.
Perhaps it even has the building blocks for creating electronic life forms.
If so, then they can be brought into the world without the teething pains that we experienced.
There might be a chance for the Alliance to win the war against the UN, and for humans to coexist in peace with electronic life forms.
We believe that the gateway itself was just an error-checking mechanism for the installation, a way of verifying that the knowledge contained in the installation had been applied successfully.
So there is at least the possibility of communicating information back from the future.
What happened to the gateway on Persephone anyway? Why didn't more people come through?
The Alliance relief fleet dispatched by Admiral Decker encountered another UN fleet near Persephone about 4 months after you went through the gateway.
The UN fleet lost the resulting battle.
Before withdrawing from the scene, the UN commander decided to keep the installation on Persephone out of Alliance hands.
She ordered a nuclear strike on the surface.
The installation was reduced to radioactive glass.
Nothing useful was ever recovered from the site.
The plan put in motion by the beings in the original timeline was stillborn.
As you can see by the miserable situation we find ourselves in now, there wasn't enough of a change to have the positive effects that we believe were intended.
So how can we use the gateway if it was blasted into slag?
A link between the present and the past does exist.
The destruction of the gateway does not change the fact that it was activated and remained on for several months.
How was I accounted for to my family when they didn't find me on the Lexington or the surface of the planet?
You were listed as killed in action.
The Alliance Command believed you were on the surface of the planet when the UN attacked the installation.
You haven't even seen the gateway. All you have are my memories. How can you be drawing conclusions?
We have learned a great deal in a short time just by having you come through the gateway and appear in our midst.
A great deal of theory can be validated without experiment just by the knowledge that your presence here is proof that it works.
Unfortunately, we don't know how the beings in the original timeline traveled back in time to build the installation on Persephone.
So you can go back through the gateway and change the outcome of the war.
It isn't that simple.
You just said you thought the gateway could be used to send back information about whether the changes worked or not.
Information, yes.
Matter, no.
There are some basic laws concerning conservation of mass and energy that would be violated by sending matter.
but information is in effect a form of energy.
Well, yes and no.
It depends.
It's complicated.
So what you're saying is that you can't send anything back.
We can't send any matter back in time.
So what is the plan?
We think we can send information in a very limited sort of way.
Well, in fact, we can only think of one way to send back information.
You are the key.
When you came through the gateway, you left a kind of signature that we can track back through the gateway.
What we want to do is follow that signature all the way back to the time before the battle with the Dharma.
We want to send you information about this future before the battle for Persephone took place.
Say what?
If you have foreknowledge of events, you will know how to avoid the ambush that nearly destroyed the Lexington.
You can use the hype telecon system on the Lexington to defeat the Dharma and change history.
The Alliance would gain access to the installation on Persephone.
The plan created by those who lived in the original timeline would be fulfilled.
This timeline would be overwritten by a new and hopefully better timeline, one in which humankind and electronic life forms learn to coexist and live in peace.
How will you accomplish this? The machinery for the gateway was slagged.
We are already building the necessary hardware.
What would the practical effect be?
We would feed back a subset of the memories that you have acquired since the Lexington met the Dharma in battle.
Will I die here when this timeline is overwritten?
It is hard to say.
Did the beings in the original timeline ever exist?
There is certainly evidence of their existence in the form of the installation on Persephone.
You aren't being very reassuring.
You haven't changed all that much since all of this began.
Your death will be a small one.
You will lose only a day or two.
We, on the other hand, may not have ever existed.
How will this work?
Your consciousness can almost be thought of as an illusion, a pattern like a standing wave.
This delicate pattern arises from the interaction of the matter that makes up your brain.
We will apply a gentle stimulus necessary to change this pattern without directly affecting any matter.
The change in the pattern will cause a change in the underlying memories.
When would this happen?
We would transfer the memories about 2 hours before the battle was to begin.
I was asleep.
You will wake up with the memories already there.
You will have to act fast, however.
You won't have much time.
You should try to make this happen earlier. I need more time. I have no authority to be giving orders, taking hype, and trying to run things.
You will have to convince your superiors.
We can only transfer a limited amount of information.
We will also suffer a degradation in quality for every minute we move back in time.
It cannot be done any earlier.
I'm afraid I can't do this. I can't go back. I can't change history. I would betray the 2,000 souls in that colony ship and the billions who are sacrificing their lives so that those brave few may start again on another world. The UN was just doing what it had to do when it set off the doomsday device.
We are indeed giving you a choice here.
If you elect not to travel back, then we will reverse the effect of the hype modifications.
We will make you as comfortable as you can be for the years and months that are left to us.
I'm not going back. I can't betray my race.
You are sure that this is your choice?
Yes.
Very well.
Yes.
Who were they? You just...
We would...
It is hard.
You haven't...
How?
You
should try...
You will have...
After the persecution, bloodshed, and horror associated with your introduction to this world and my race, you still don't hate me for what I am?
We don't hate.
I'm willing to go back and try to set history on a new path. What should I do?
We will take care of the practicalities.
Are you sure you want to try this?
I choose to go back.
You have chosen a wise and honorable path.
Up and about, are we?
This is the Lexington. I made it.
You're in the med lab. We had to carry you in here.
Oh my god, what time is it? What is the ship's position?
It's 21:45. We're about 30 minutes away from entering orbit around Persephone. The Jericho is in position behind us. Do you have anything to say, Lieutenant?
Why are you pointing a Mark II buzz gun at my head?
There was a report of a disturbance in your quarters. I authorized a petty officer and an ensign to break in. They found you writhing on the floor next to your bunk, screaming about hype, a UN ship called Dharma, Pandora, and the deaths of the entire crew of the Lexington. So here are my problems. First, you aren't supposed to know about hype. Only the captain, myself, and the medical officer have been given access to those files. Hype is classified top secret Omega. Second, you referred to a specific UN ship that has been unaccounted for by Alliance intel for months. The Dharma is one of the UN's new Geneva-class heavy cruisers. Another classified fact. This time, top secret Gamma. Third, you referred to our target on Persephone as Pandora, a classified codename given to it by Alliance mission planners. Last, and frankly most disturbing to me, you ranted and raved about everyone in the crew of this ship dying, except for you. Now I want some explanations, Lieutenant, and I want them now.
I'm afraid I can only tell the captain.
Try me.
Well, it's like this.
That is the most ridiculous story I've heard since I graduated from the Naval Academy. Now, I'm sorry, Lieutenant, but I'm trained to think of the simplest explanation as the most likely explanation. The simplest explanation is, you're a UN agent. You seem to know all about this mission. You've probably informed the UN as to our destination and time of arrival. Is that why you wanted to know where we are? You're expecting an ambush?
Poole is the traitor, not me.
You know, you may not be an agent, but it seems the most likely explanation given the circumstances. I have to assume the worst.
Have you informed the captain yet?
About you? Well, he knows that I came down here to find out what was going on. I haven't yet briefed him on the potential security problem. He's not going to buy your bullshit about alternate timelines and machine creatures.
Why don't you let me tell him? What have you got to lose?
Of course. We're loaded for bear anyway.
It won't do you any good.
Computer, please page the medical officer and alert him that the prisoner will need to be put under sedation and restrained.
Wait, please tell me. It's important. What harm can I do? I'll be unconscious during the action.
We'll have a full complement of drones out front and a standard screen as we go in.
The Dharma has 12 active drones. This disadvantage is made worse by the fact that her drones outclass ours. You can't win this battle without my help.
Your help? You've got to be kidding.
I fought and won several battles in the alternate timeline. The key is hype.
No goddamn way. Hype hasn't even been battle-tested. I've had enough of your crap.
If you give me a boost of hype, the drug will take effect in time for me to fight that battle and win it.
Please keep quiet until the medical officer gets here.
What are you doing on the bridge, Lieutenant?
Sir, you're walking into a trap. I need to talk to you immediately.
This better be good.
A UN ship with superior firepower is waiting for us on the other side of that planet. She has 12 active drones that can outgun and outfly our Basilisk drones. There is only one way to defeat that ship, Captain.
How do you know about this, Lieutenant?
There's an objective test to confirm what I'm telling you. Send one of our drones around to the other side of Persephone. Monitor the telemetry. You'll find the Geneva-class heavy cruiser UNS Dharma and 12 Galley-class drones waiting to ambush us.
The Dharma. Damn it. Why didn't this come up before? How do you know this?
I didn't know until recently. Sir, please deploy a drone. The fate of this mission and much, much more is riding on the next few minutes.
Lieutenant Mandan, take drone Foxtrot out of the screen and vector it into a polar orbit around Persephone. Maximum acceleration.
Yes, sir. Foxtrot is on its way.
Okay, Lieutenant. Let's assume for the moment that you're correct. How do we fight and win?
The med officer has tanked me up on hype. I'll use the telepresence unit on the tactical console to win this battle. There wasn't time to alert you. We only have a few minutes.
Hype? Jesus Christ, I gave no authorization for use of hype. You actually ingested that poison.
Yes, sir.
You're a dead man, Lieutenant.
I know that.
Who are you? Are you an Intel Special Ops plant? Do you have experience with the hype telecom system?
I'm the best hope you've got, Captain.
Sir, I've lost telemetry from Foxtrot.
You were right. And they popped my recon drone before it even had a chance to fire. We're dead meat if we try a standard attack pattern. Lieutenant, take tactical.
Deploying Alpha. Information. Bravo. Information.
Charlie.
Information.
Delta.
Information.
Echo.
Information.
Hotel.
Information.
India.
Information. Alpha. Disengaging. Echo. Disengaging. Delta. Disengaging. Hotel. Disengaging. Bravo. Disengaging. Deploying. Bravo. Disengaging. Echo. Disengaging. Hotel. Disengaging. Charlie. Disengaging. India. Disengaging. All enemy drones have been destroyed. Deploying. Delta. Disengaging. Golf. Disengaging. Deploying. Charlie. Information. India. Information. Hotel. Information. Echo. Information. Golf. Information. Delta. Tracking target. Heavy target destroyed. All enemy ships have been destroyed.
And so a new timeline was created, overwriting the old one that had been my reality. There was no material evidence that the alternate timeline had ever existed. All I had were my memories, and I knew that these would fade until the alternate timeline was really gone forever. After I refought the battle with the Dharma, I explained what had happened to Captain Dana, and then went over it again with a groggy Lieutenant Commander Jennifer Tran. As unbelievable as they found my story, they were swayed by my hype-driven defeat of the waiting UN heavy cruiser. They were even further convinced that something extraordinary had happened to me when I exposed Poole as the traitor and produced the evidence of his activities. Poole was placed under arrest and sealed in his quarters to await trial on Earth. They agreed to my unusual request to go with the science team on the first run down to the surface of Persephone. The planetary lander once again made the trip from the Jericho to the Lexington and then down to the surface of the planet, this time with a crew of 5. I walked the science team through the gateway activation sequence inside the ancient installation. I took the science team leader in confidence and told her that I intended to go through the gateway once it had been calibrated, and I exacted a promise from her that she would destroy the gateway control mechanism once I had stepped through. I was waiting at the foot of the gateway when I heard the familiar whine build up and saw the beginnings of the space-time vortex forming. I stepped through and left the year 2134 behind me forever. As I record this, I am sitting on a raft that floats on a large but gentle lake just outside my house. I have lived in this ultimately comfortable house for about 5 years, ever since my arrival here. I wanted to make a record of my strange adventures before the memories disappeared. When I went through the gateway back in 2134, I materialized once again at a point 150 years in the future. This future was different. The Alliance did indeed win the war. The plan of the long-forgotten beings that created the installation on Persephone was brought to fruition. A new race of sentient machines now coexists in peace with a human race that numbers in the tens of billions of individuals. The new beings share their cyberspace world with us, and they have used vast space-based self-replicating robot factories to create something for us in the physical world. A gift, a tribute. The Earth is gone. In its place is a Dyson sphere, a vast hollow construction that surrounds the Sun at the same distance the Earth once orbited. Continents and oceans lie on the inside surface of the sphere, forming an Eden-like landscape that is for all intents and purposes endless. For the Dyson sphere has enough surface area for 1 trillion Earths. It will take a good many millennia for the human race to completely populate its new home. Meanwhile, the new beings that we now share the universe with are living on the outside of the sphere. They pursue the basic questions of existence. They have launched the first intergalactic ships. They have long since passed the point where we can even comprehend what they are doing. As for me, I find all of this to be a mixed blessing. The evolution of these fantastic and powerful beings was inevitable. But what of us? What of humanity? What purpose have we now beyond simple existence? And what of the other me, the one that was stranded in the grim and decaying future of the alternate timeline? Did I die?